Okay, welcome dear students to this first video tutorial for our online course for Grammar 2 in this semester 2. So this tutorial is a first one in which I'm going to try to give you an overview of the chapters that we need to cover for semester 2 regarding grammar. Okay, so first statement here is that this online English grammar course is a developmental skills course for intermediate to advanced English language learners. That is to say, it is meant for students who are normally supposed to be in an intermediate level, and to hopefully this course will help them improve and move into an advanced level in terms of their competence regarding the use of English grammar. Takes a time-tested approach that blends direct grammar instruction with carefully sequenced practice to develop all language skills. According to this first sentence here, this course integrates two components. So we're going to have direct English grammar or direct grammar instruction. Let's say we're going to have a number of rules, and we'll explain the rules for you and the principles that are related to those rules. But at the same time, after the explanations, we're going to have lot of practice, in which you are going to have a number of interactive, automatically graded and corrected exercises that will be put for you on online, and this is the approach that we have been using in class, and we're going to continue to use the same approach online. So you will have the explanations. I will post for you the video tutorials which explain the rules, the examples. They give you the examples for the rules and principles, but at the same time, after that, they will be followed by these interactive, automatically corrected and graded exercises for you online. Grammar is viewed as an organizing system to help students make sense of the language they see and hear, rather than as a mere collection of rules. Why we have this combination of these two elements, direct grammar instruction and practice and exercises? Because the mastery of any grammar, and English is one of them, is not simply the explanation of the rules and the principles for each aspect of English grammar, but it has to be followed and practiced, followed by a number of interactive exercises and practice to enhance the understanding of those principles and rules, rather than as a mere collection of rules. This perspective provides a natural logic framework for students to make English their own, and this way it is hoped that the students will understand better the rules of English grammar, and also will master these rules and principles and use them appropriately when they are speaking English, when they are writing English. So that's why in this online course I have done my best in order to include a number of interactive, automatically corrected and graded exercises. There will be a lot of practice for you to do wherever you are. This is exactly what we have been doing in class, by the way. Whenever we finish explanation of the rules, we do the exercises in the class, and then we correct them, and then we move forward, and so on and so forth. So we're going to continue using the same approach. We'll do the video tutorials for you, explain the rules and principles and examples and so on and so forth, and then after that I will ask you to do the online interactive exercises after that. Next, this is what I have just said now is the explanation of the approach that we have been using and will be using in this online course. Now, concerning the content of what you are required to cover in this semester too. So the basic aim is to review basic models, model forms, and gain mastery of their more advanced forms, meanings, and to learn additional uses of modal auxiliaries. So we're going to deal with modals. Okay, so we're going to deal with modals. That's why you are required to go through chapter on models part 1 and the chapter on models part 2, which you have in your textbook. Okay, and then it is hoped that you are going to understand better and gain mastery of the advanced forms and meanings of model forms, so the situations where we use them and how we use them. After dealing with models, we're going to move to gerunds and infinitives part 1 and part 2. So then gerunds, so at the beginning we'll cover gerunds and their functions, and the functions of gerunds, why we use gerunds, are dealt with before moving on to of course infinitives. Okay, so we're going to talk about gerunds and how we use them and the functions for which we have infinitives as well. And you are going to notice that in this two chapters, gerunds and infinitives part 1 and part 2, there are a number of special groups, special groups of verbs. So they are going to have lists, many lists of special group of verbs that are either followed by infinitives, special groups of verbs that are followed by gerunds, or special groups of verbs that are followed by both gerunds and infinitives. The course, that's why the course emphasizes the importance of becoming comfortable with using both gerunds and infinitives through practice rather than rote memorization. So when you're going to cover and read the chapter 1 and chapter 2, part 1 and part 2 of gerunds and infinitives, you're going to have a number of lists of special groups of such verbs. These remember this. Special groups of lists. You're going to have lists. So this doesn't mean that you need to focus on memorization. It doesn't mean that you need to go through those lists and remember those special groups of verbs that are followed by infinitives, and those special groups of verbs that are followed by gerunds, and those special groups of verbs that are followed by both. No, it means that you need to do that via practice. That's why practice. You need to do the practice, you need to do the exercises that I'm going to give you online in order to help you understand those special groups and remember them, rather than just simply taking the list by itself and start remembering it by heart. That wouldn't work. What you need to do is to do the exercise, to do the practice that go with these lists of special groups of verbs. Reference lists are at the end of the chapters on gerunds and infinitives part 1 and part 2. You're going to have a number of reference lists of these special groups. Special groups. You have reference lists. Let's say you need to remember them, but raw memorization is not recommended at all. Please, don't take them and learn them as such by heart, using raw memorization. No, you need to do the practice. You need to do practice, and you need to do interactive exercises. So after that, dealing with Gen 7, we're going to move into the last chapter, which is about conditional. Finally, since verb forms are used for distinctions of meanings and conditions, and the course begins with a summary of their use in presenting both factual and contrary to fact information, so we will deal with conditionals type 0, 1, 2, 3, and we will go through the changes in the forms of verbs, and the changes in the verb forms, and also the result, the trigger regarding the meaning, regarding the meaning of the conditional sentences. Sometimes they can have factual information, sometimes you can have contrary to fact information. So for the moment I'm not going to give the details, but this is just to tell you that this is what we're going to cover during this online course about grammar 2. So we'll finish by dealing with conditional sentences, type 0, 1, 2, 3, and different meanings that are used to express. Finally, the course ends with the section on wishes. Okay, we will finish by dealing with wishes, because wishes and conditionals almost have the same thing regarding the verb forms and also regarding the meaning to some extent. Okay, we'll see the differences. So that's why they are put together into this chapter. So this is it for this video tutorial. I don't want to make it long. Okay, so and hopefully we will enjoy this experience together online and benefit okay from it and learn from it as much as we can. Okay, take benefit of it, please. Okay, and do the exercises, listen to the video tutorials, and do the activities. Okay, so that's you can call that you have covered the content of semester 2 grammar 2 course. Thank you very much. Okay, welcome back, dear students, to our series of video tutorials. So in this first one, I'm going to talk about the following. So the objective of this video tutorial is to review basic modal forms and gain mastery of their more advanced forms, meanings, and uses. The modal auxiliaries are used to express attitudes, give advice, and indicate politeness. Mistakes with modals can result in bad feelings or misunderstandings between the speaker and the listener. Because of this, it is very important to stress that using certain modals connotes a certain degree of respect and politeness. Students are instructed that a minor change in modal usage can signal a big difference in meaning and understanding, and thus it is important they use the right modal for each situation. Students following this course of Grammar 2 Online are probably already familiar with the most common meanings of modal auxiliaries. The focus at the beginning of this chapter is on the basic modal forms. The remainder of the chapter takes a semantic approach, grouping together modals and other expressions that have similar meanings so that students can learn them systematically. Matters of pronunciation, spoken versus written usage, and formal versus informal registers are noted in the charts. The charts in the chapter and in the following chapter demonstrate that modals have many meanings and uses, depending on the specifics of the situation they are used in. Rather than presenting a full summary of all uses of modals, the text splits the study of modals into 2 chapters. Students are reminded that at the end of the following chapter on Modals Part 2 includes a complete summary chart, which will prove a useful reference once they have studied all the uses and forms, as we are going to see in this series of video tutorials. If students want to get an idea of how varied the meanings and uses of modals are, they are kindly referred to any standard dictionary and are invited to look up the meanings of can, could, may, etc. Students are informed that the lengthy and varied definitions are presented clearly in the chart at the end of this chapter and the following chapter on Modals Part 2. So in this first video tutorial, we're going to cover the following. So we will talk about general overview of modals, what is the structure of modals, and what are the different types of modals that are used, and some kinds of general principles and rules regarding the use of modals in a general way. But later on, we will start to talk about each aspect on this general introduction with more details and specific examples. So we are going to cover expressing necessity using must, have to, have got to. We will talk about lack of necessity, not to have to, and prohibition using must not. We will talk about advisability and suggestions, which are expressed using the modals should, ought to, had better, and could. Then we talk about expectations, that is expressed via be supposed to and should. Ability you expressed via the modals can, how to, and be able to. Possibility can, may, and might. Requests and responses with modals. Polite requests with would you mind. Making suggestions via the modals let's, why, don't, shall I, and we. So this is what we are going to cover in the first part on modals, in this first part, which is modals part 1. And see you in the next tutorial. Okay, welcome back, dear students, to this general introduction about models. So in this one, it's going to be a general review. Okay, we will go through the different types of models. Okay, also we will try to define models. What do we mean by models? And also we'll give examples for each type of model and how it is used. Also we'll talk about the form regarding the use of models, which is very important. So this one is going to sound to you like a general introduction. We'll not give almost everything, but not in detail. The details will be provided to you in the following video tutorials of this series that I hope that you enjoy. So modal auxiliaries, as you can see, generally express speakers' attitudes. For example, modals can express that a speaker feels something is necessary, advisable, permissible, possible, or probable. And in addition, they can convey the strength of those attitudes. Each modal has more than one meaning or use. Now, this little paragraph, it simply tells you that, for example, when you give the word, you revise your lessons. For example, here we have this statement, you revise by your lessons or your courses. Now, we have the meaning here for the verb that is given is simply the meaning of revise. Okay, that's all. But when you add to it the model, a specific model, like if you say, you should revise lessons, your courses. Now, in addition to the meaning of revising, here we have an additional meaning, an additional attitude that is expressed, added to the meaning of revise, which is the attitude of giving advice. So the person here is not simply telling people to revise, but also telling them to the attitude of advisability. So he's giving the person to whom he's talking an advice. So this is what we mean by expressing speakers' attitudes. In addition to the verbs, we have different types of attitudes that can be added to the verbs. Like, for example, here we have sometimes models can express that the speaker feels something is necessary. Okay, sometimes he can, let me show you, highlight this for you using a pen. So sometimes the speakers, okay, we call this speakers' attitudes, okay, that are added, okay, to the meaning of the verbs that we use on our communication. And this speaker feels something, for example, is necessary, or feels that something is advisable, feels that something is permissible, feels that something is possible, feels something is probable, etc., etc. These are kinds of speakers of attitudes. They are also referred to as modalities. That's where we have the verb or the word modals. Okay, modals. Now, in English, there are different types of modals. So you can see here we have can, have could, had better, may, might, must, ought to, shall, should, will, and would. So all these are examples of models that are used, modal auxiliaries used in English. Now, these are some of the examples. For example, I can do it, you could do it, he had better do it, she may do it, it must do it, ought to do it, etc., etc. So all in these examples here, we have models that are used. Okay, now there are a few things that we have to take into account and remember about the use of modals. Now these are the following points. First one, here we have that modals, okay, do not take a final S even when the subject is she, okay, or he, or it, as we have it here. Normally we know that when we have the third person singular in present simple, we normally should add S to the verb at the end of the verb. But for the modals, we never add something like that, okay? We never add the final S. For example, here we say she can do it, but if you say she can do it, that's not correct. Modals are followed immediately by the simple form, okay, the simple form of the verb. What do we mean by the simple form of the verb? We mean the infinitive without to. She can do it, okay, she can do it. So here we have this one here, do, okay, it is the infinitive without to. That's why it is called simple, okay, it's called simple form of the verb. But if you say, for example, she can to do it, that's not correct, okay, that's not correct. She can does it, that's not correct. If you say she did it, etc., etc., start conjugating the verb. No, you don't have to conjugate the verb because it's an infinitive without to. The only exception is ought, which is followed by an infinitive to. Normally this to here, which you have after the verb, look in the example, she ought to go. Normally this to here, which you have here, okay, let me highlight it for you as well, this to here, it belongs to the modal, okay, it belongs to the modal, it goes with the modal. It has nothing to do with the idea that it is infinitive of the verb go. No, we normally use simply the simple form of the verb, the infinitive without to, after the modal auxiliaries. So these are some information we have to bear in mind regarding modal auxiliaries. There are now modal auxiliaries. We can have two types. Either we can have single word modals, okay, like can do it, could do it, may do it. Sometimes we can have what we call phrasal modals. Here we have an example, okay, this is an example. Better in the sense that it's composed of two words. Sometimes these are further examples for you, okay, regarding phrasal models, okay. So for example, we have be able to do it, be going to do it, be supposed to do it, have to do it, and have got to do it, in the sense that it's composed of more than one word. So phrasal models are common expressions whose meanings are similar to those of some of the modal auxiliaries. For example, you have be able to, it is the same as the modal can. Have to is the same as the modal, some examples as must, have got to do, same as a modal must. So similar to those of some of modals, for example, be able to is similar to can, be going to is similar to will. And infinitive, to, plus the simple form of verb is used in these similar expressions. So here, if you notice, in all of these, okay, phrasal models, we have, okay, different from what we have said here. We have preposition to, what goes with the verb, okay. So this is it for kind of general introduction overview of what we're going to cover in more details in the following video tutorials. See you next time. Thank you very much. Okay, dear students, welcome for this continuation of our video tutorials in Grammar 2. So in this video, I'm going to speak about the chart that describes using models for expressing necessity. And I'm going to describe and explain this chart that you have in your textbook. So this chart, generally speaking, first of all, I'd like to say the following, is that this chart contains information about pronunciation, formal, informal usage, spoken, written forms, and one past form. So note please that must is used primarily with a forceful kind of meaning. Have to and have got to are much more frequently used in everyday English than must. Students also should become familiar with and practice the conversational pronunciation of have to and have got to, because most students don't have or don't know the International Phonetic Alphabet. It is more useful to write the sound in the alphabetical or in the actual alphabet. Okay, make sure to know the difference between have got to, which shows possession, and have got to show necessity or to describe necessity. So as you can see in this chart, we have the two categories. We have in the first rubric or category, we have must and have to, and then we have in the second category we have got to. So these three models, they can be used to express necessity. What do we mean by necessity? Necessity, it means everything that is necessary. Yeah, okay, you need to do, okay, you must do. And there are degrees of necessity, and these degrees are expressed by the use of different models. So the first example here, all applicants must have or must take an entrance exam. All applicants have to take an entrance exam. So must and have to, both of them express necessity. It is very necessary for the applicant to take an entrance exam, as in this first example, and there is no other choice for the person, and the exam is a requirement. So in both examples, the exam is a requirement that the person or the applicant can't escape. Then we have, I am looking for Sue. I have to talk to her about lunch date tomorrow. I can't meet her for lunch because I have to go to a business meeting at 1 o'clock. And then you have the other example. Cell phones must be in your backpacks during class. Johnny, you must stay away from the stove. It is very hot. So in these statements, in all these statements of necessity, have to is used more frequently in everyday speech and writing than must. So this is what I have said in the very beginning. So have to is more frequent, okay, than must. So in the meaning of these sentences, all of them, they describe necessity, okay, they describe necessity. Must, there is the only difference between these must and have to. Must is typically stronger than have to, okay. Must is, in terms of degree of necessity, stronger than have to, and indicates a kind of urgency. It means when we say that somebody must do something, it means it is urgent for that person to do it. It's very important for that person to do it. So must is usually found in rules, okay, instructions and legal information. So this is the only difference between using must and have to. And finally, we have got to. The examples, I have got to go now. I have got to go now. I have a class in 10 minutes. So have got to also expresses the idea of necessity. Have got to is informal, okay. This is one difference between have to, and must. It is, have got to is informal and is used primarily in spoken English, in informal context between friends, family members, etc. So this is the only difference between have got to and must and have to. So have got to is more informal, more used in oral communication, right? So this is what we can say about degrees of necessity. Now, if we want to classify these models, so we can start with must as the highest degree of necessity, formality in formal context, then followed by have to, then followed by have got to. So this is for the use of models for expressing necessity. Now I'm going to stop, and in the next video I will speak about the next chart. Okay, welcome back again. Now I continue with the following chart, which talks about expressing lack of necessity and prohibition. So this is somehow the opposite of the previous chart which I've just described for you about expressing necessity. So expressing necessity, we use must, have to, have got to. Now the opposite of necessity is expressing lack of necessity, and also we're going to speak about another modality which is prohibition. Now this is the chart for you. So for expressing lack of necessity, we use have to in the negative form. Example, so have to, let me use again my pen, okay, digital pen. So don't have to go, don't have to shout. So tomorrow is a holiday, we don't have to go to class, okay? I can hear you, you don't have to shout. So here there is no necessity for example, the first example, for going to class tomorrow, because tomorrow is a holiday. And the second example, there is no need, no necessity for speaking in loud voice, because the person can hear. Okay, so this is lack of necessity, and we should use don't have to. We use have to in the negative form, or must in the negative form. So when used in the negative form, must and have to have different meanings. Negative form, do not have to, expresses necessity. Okay, so for this one, it expresses necessity. But for must followed by negative form, we're going to see it in the following categories. So this is the first thing you need to remember. Okay, for expressing lack of necessity, we use have to in the negative form. Okay, have to in the negative form. Now for expressing the prohibition, we normally use must not tell, or don't tell. Okay, must not tell. So here we have the modal must in the negative form, but as you can see, the negative form for have to means expressing lack of necessity. The negative form for must expresses prohibition. So the first one expresses do not have to, expresses lack of necessity. It is not necessary, but must in the negative form expresses prohibition, something that is prohibited from being done. Somebody shouldn't do this, must not do it, do not do this. This is the meaning of prohibition. Do not do this. So you must not tell anyone my secret. Do you promise? So this is the meaning of prohibition, and we use must in the negative form. So must not is very strong, so remember this as well. Must not is a very strong kind of model that we can use for prohibition. Okay, for prohibition we use must not. Okay, is a kind of very strong model for expressing prohibition. It means that the person listening shouldn't do it. Do not do this. Okay, do not, this is the meaning. Okay, do not do this. There is no way of doing that. Speakers generally express prohibition with imperatives. Sometimes we can also use imperatives for expressing prohibition, as in D, don't tell anyone my secret. You can't. Also we can use other models like can't or had better not tell. So this is what we can say about expressing lack of necessity and prohibition. See you in the next chart. Okay, we'll come back. We continue with expressing advisability and suggestions. So advice, so before just going to the chart like this, a few things to say here. Advice or suggestion is usually friendly. It is often given by parent, friend, co-worker, teacher, mentor, or supervisor, and sometimes by complete strangers. Advisability is not as forceful as necessity. This is one difference between what we have seen before in terms of necessity and advisability. So advisability is not as forceful, as strong as necessity, and it is also not as urgent, as important. Okay, advisability is less urgent, less important, less necessary. In general, advice can also be not so friendly, depending on the speaker's tone of voice and attitude. Note the special meaning of had better. as we're going to see in the chart, had better is used also for one of the models used for expressing advisability, and it shows that the advice should be followed in order to avoid negative consequences. It is used to give advice to a peer or to a subordinate, but it is also not used to give advice to someone in a superior position or a position of authority. And this is here, as we're going to see it later, had better. So to start with, here we have the models that we normally can use for expressing advisability. So as you know, we have the model, okay, here, should, the model should, okay, the model ought to, okay, you should study harder, you ought to study harder. Then again, drivers should obey the speed limit, drivers ought to obey the speed limit. So here we have the model should and the model ought to, which are used for expressing necessity. Should and ought to, both of them express advice, okay, advisability, okay, they express. So should and ought to express advisability. Their meaning ranges in strength from a suggestion to a statement about responsibility or duty, okay. So we can have different degrees of strength of this advice, okay. It can be a mere simple suggestion, okay, suggestion, and it go up to a statement about responsibility or responsibility and duty. This is a very important thing to do. It's a very important thing to do. Here you have the pronunciation, so of ought to. Now let's move on for the negative form. Here we have the negative form for should, okay, shouldn't leave your keys. Negative, we have here the contraction. Now we move on into, sorry, I have to go back. We have here the next model we can also use for expressing advisability, which is had better, okay. The gas tank is almost empty. We had better stop at the next gas station. Next example again, you had better take care of that cut on your hand soon or it will get infected. Now in meaning, had better is close to should, of course, and ought to. Why? Because they all of them express advice, okay, but had better is usually stronger. This is the main thing to take regarding the use of the model had better, okay, is usually stronger, okay, stronger. Had better is stronger. When you say somebody an advice using had better, it means better for the person to do it, or there might be some kind of bad consequence maybe, okay. So it is very important to do. Often had better implies a warning, okay, a warning of a threat of possible bad consequences. That is to say, when the person says had better, there is a kind of implication that that's maybe there could be a possibility of a bad consequence if the person doesn't do the advice, okay. So this is the difference between should and ought to and had better. If we want to classify these in terms of strength of advice, we start of course with had better, then followed by should or ought to. Here you have had better take care of it, okay. This is the contraction. Look here we have the contraction of had better, okay, and here you have no contraction, you have the full form of the auxiliary had, okay. This is something just to bear in mind. You'd better not, this is the negative form. This is the negative form, how you do the negative form for the model had better, okay. You'd better not be late, negative form, had better not, okay, followed by the verb, simple form of the verb, be, okay, simple form of the verb. Here we have the verb be, here we have the verb take. Remember, we never use infinitive with to, we just use infinitive without to, the simple form of the verb. Also, to finish, we have to talk about suggestions. So in order to express suggestions, we can use the model, okay, could, okay, talk, could talk, or should talk, or these two models can be used for expressing a kind of suggestion. You want to suggest somebody something to do, okay? So what you do, you can use a model could. For example, you could talk to your teacher. You should talk to your teacher. Could can also be used to make a suggestion, okay? Should is stronger than can, okay? Is stronger than can and more definite than could, sorry. Stronger than could, and in turn when you talk about suggestion, so should is okay, stronger than could, okay? Could can also be used for making suggestions. So this is for expressing advisability and suggestions. Okay, so we continue with expressing expectations. Just a few statements before going into the chart. So while necessity and obligation that we have seen in the previous charts, can both of them originate from speaker generally. So expectations are made of a person from the outside world. So the phrase be supposed to, and in some cases the model should. So these are the models that are normally used to express expectations that we're going to see. So these models can be used to show external expectations. An expectation can be two types of expectations. Such expectations are often well-known cultural expectations or procedures. As in the example, a man is supposed to take off his hat when he enters a church, as well as simply meeting an agreed upon schedule, like in the example, we are supposed to be at the airport 2 hours earlier than our international flight. In some references, be supposed to was described as an obligation. However, expectation better shows that someone, other than a subject, has set the expectation. Be supposed to can be replaced by the passive voice phrase is expected to. Also, in some editions, this text has included to be to. I am to attend 3 more lectures before I take the exam, as another way to express an external expectation. B2 to show expectation. This use is growing increasingly uncommon. Now let's focus more on the chart that we have in our hand now for explaining the models used for expression necessity. So we have the first example. Okay, the first example, the game is supposed to begin at 10 o'clock. So this is the first example where we have the use of the model be supposed to. The committee, next example, the committee is supposed to vote by secret ballot. Okay, now here we have is supposed to. So be supposed to can be, as a model, can be used to express the idea that someone expects something to happen. Okay, expects something to happen. When you have an expectation of something that might happen, you expect something to happen. That's what we mean by expressing an expectations. And the model that is normally used for this usually is the model be supposed. Okay, be supposed to is often expresses expectations, and we have to be careful here because there are different types of expectations. So in here, in these examples, we are talking about expectations about scheduled
events. Okay, what do you mean by scheduled events? It means events which are planned, that are part of a calendar, that's part of a timetable. Okay, these are expectations. Or as in A, so the first example, the game is supposed to begin at 10 o'clock. So here we have a timetable, and in this timetable it says that at 10 o'clock there is going to be a game. So here we are talking about expectation about scheduled event, as in E. Or an expectation about correct procedures, as in the example B. So the committee is supposed to vote by separate ballot. So here, normally in the procedures of voting, it is known that the best way to do the voting is usually by separate, in secret. Okay, this is an expectation about a correct procedure, a correct way of doing something, as in example B. So these are the two types of expectations we can have. We can have expectations about scheduled events or expectation about correct procedures. And the model that we normally use for expressing these kinds of expectations is the model be supposed. Okay, be supposed to. I am supposed, example C, I am supposed to go to the meeting. My boss told me that he wants me to attend. So here again we have this kind of expectation, and we have the model be supposed to used in it. The children, example D, the children are supposed to put away their toys before they go to bed. Okay, so we have here are supposed to put away. Now here we have a different kind of expectation. So we have already mentioned that we can have expectation about scheduled events, we can have expectation about correct procedure. Also we can use the model be supposed to express expectations about behavior, some kind of behavior. We expect a specific kind of behavior. So here the behavior that is expected from me is to go to the meeting. Here the behavior that is expected for children is to put away the toys before they go to sleep. You can't take the toys with them. So this is an expectation about a kind of behavior that we normally have in our culture. So someone else expects, requires, or okay, a certain behavior. I am supposed to, okay, I am expected to. Okay. Now here you need to make a difference, please, between two types of words. We have the model that we are talking about here is the model be supposed to. Now here you have the auxiliary be followed by the past participle of the main verb supposed to, and then there is a preposition to. This is different from I suppose. So the meaning here of I am supposed to, it means I am expected to do something. But here I suppose, this is a verb, okay, the verb to suppose that is used here, and it means I guess, I think, I believe, I suppose, okay. So this is the meaning of the expectations, and the model used for expressing expectations is be supposed to. We can also use the model should, okay, be, okay, should be, should followed by the simple form of the verb. The mail should be here soon. Amy should be back in the future, in a minute. So should can also express expectation, okay, express expectation. So here we have spoken about the use of the models that can be used to express expectations. Okay, see you in the next chart. So now we continue with another type of modality, which is expressing ability. Okay, now the model that is normally used for expressing ability, as we all know, is the model can. So we have the example here. Can lift. Okay, Tom is strong. He can lift that heavy box. I can see Central Park from my apartment. So here we have the use of the model can for expressing ability. Ability is something that you can do. Can is used to express either a physical ability, as in A, he can lift that heavy box. Can is frequently used with verbs of the five senses, like the verb see, hear, smell. I can see Central Park from my apartment. The negative form has three options, so we can either use the full form, cannot, and the abbreviated or contract form, can't, or the full form without attaching the negation to the modal, can, and then not. So this is the modal can for expressing ability. Negative form is we have here, my husband cannot stay awake past 10 o'clock. We can't wait any longer for Bill. So it means that there is no ability to do that. So we can use can for expressing ability, okay, as in these examples. And another example is Maria can play the piano. Maria knows how to play the piano. So here we have the model, can play. Maria can play the piano. She's been taking lessons from 10 years. So can and know how to are used to express a learned skill. Okay, so in the first example we talked about physical ability, something that you can do, physically speaking. But here we're talking about something that you have learned in your life, like learning to drive, learning to swim, learning to speak a language. So that's a kind of learned skill. And here we can use the expressions of the models know how to and the model can. Also, we can use the models I am able to help you. And then here you have the question, are you able to help me? A negative form, I am not able to help you. I am unable to help you as opposites for able. So all of these are models for also expressing ability. You know, the only difference is that here we have one word model, model can, but here we have what we call phrasal models. That is to say, a model is composed of more than words. So here you have I am able to, and then the simple form of the verb. So be able to, as we have here, expresses ability, like the can, which we have here, okay, like can, exactly. So this is it for expressing ability. So we continue with the following chart, which is the models that we can use for expressing possibility. So example here, the first example, let me take my digital pen. Like spices can be expensive. You can learn a lot by watching cooking shows. So can is used to express a general possibility, something that is possible, okay, to happen, okay, possibility. This is generally possible, typical. This is what we mean by possibility, something that is generally possible, something that is generally typical, something that is generally common, something that generally can happen. So here we have the possibility that spices can be expensive, and the other possibility that you can learn a lot by watching cooking shows. So here we have the model use is can, okay, followed by the simple form of the verb. Also, we can use the models may and might. Spices might be more expensive at that store. Lisa might need your help in the kitchen. So also here we have the model may and the model might, which are used to express a present or future possibility. Okay, present or future possibility. The idea, there is a chance for something to happen. So these are the models that we can use for expressing possibility. So the next chart is about expressing request. So when you request something, you ask for something, okay? You want something, you request something, expressing requests. Now here we have different ways of expressing or using request. Either you can use request with I as the subject, okay? I as the subject, and in this case we usually use the modals may, could, and can. May I borrow your pen, please? Okay, so here we have the modal, and we have I as the subject for the main verb here, which is the verb borrow. Could I please borrow? So here we also use for asking for a pen, and you use I as the subject of the verb, so we use the modal could. Could I borrow your pen? Finally, we can use the modal can. Can I borrow your pen? You want the pen, you ask for the pen, and then you request for the pen. So you want to express a request, and you want to express here a request with I as the subject. Okay, I as subject. And the modals that we use are may, can, and could. May I and could I are used to express or to request permission. When you say, for example, may I borrow your pen, you request permission to use the pen. When you say, could I borrow your pen, you request permission to borrow the pen. May I sounds more formal. Can I is usually considered less formal. Here, this is the difference between may I and could I. Okay, so can I is usually considered less formal. It is a bit informal than the use of may I and could I, which are a bit more formal than can I. Then we have here the next rubric, which talks about expressing requests with you as the subjects, and in this case we can use the modals would, could, will, and can. So these are the models that we can use for expressing requests with you as a subject. So example, would you pass the salt please? Will you pass the salt please? Would you and will you in polite request have the same meaning. Would you is more common and is often considered more polite. So it tells you that either would you, the modal would, or the modal will, both of them are used for expressing a polite requests. Okay, both of them. So you have will and you have would you, but still there is a little bit of difference between the two. Would you is more common. Okay, this is the first difference. Then will you, and it's also considered a little bit more polite than the use of will. Okay, the degree of politeness, however, is often determined by the speaker's tone. Next, we can also use for you expressing polite requests with you as the subject. We can also use the modal could. Okay, could you pass the salt please? Basically, could you and would you have the same meaning. So if here we have would you and could you, they have the same meaning in terms of formality and in terms of politeness. Okay, next we can use the modal can you pass the salt please. Can you is often used informally. So this is the last thing we can say about the expression request with you as a subject, is that can you is also used for expressing a polite request, but it is okay, here it says can you is informal. Okay, is often used informally by opposition to would you, could you, will you. Okay, which are a bit more formal, less formal than could you and would you. So this is expressing requests. Now we continue with the next chart, which talks about expressing polite requests. If you want to request something, again asking for permission, so you can use the modals would you mind if I open the window. So here we are using the polite request with the use of another type of modal, which is would you mind. So expressing polite request using would you mind, and here we have to be careful about this because there are two ways of doing it or using it. The first way, asking for permission, we can say would you mind. Okay, would you mind if I open? So this is very important. Would you mind if I opened. Okay, would you mind if I used the phone? Would you mind if I close the door? This is the first way, asking for permission, and in this way we have to be careful to include it this way. Would you mind if, followed by the simple past. Okay, this is what we have here. Would you mind if I opened? Would you mind if I used the phone? Would you mind if I closed the door? Okay, and the meaning is, may I open the window? The meaning is, may I use the phone, or may I close the door? The next rubric, which is asking someone to do something, we use would you mind as well, as you can see here, but it's different way, because here it is followed by gerund. Okay, would you mind opening the window? Excuse me, would you mind repeating that? So when we use would you mind for asking someone to do something, we do it this way, in which would you mind is followed by gerund. Would you mind is followed by ing form of the verb. It is a gerund. And in the meaning here, would you mind opening the window? I don't want to cause you any trouble, but would you please open the window? Would that cause you any inconvenience? So you ask someone to do something in a polite way. So this is expressing polite requests using would you mind. Today we can finish the final chart in the first part of the first chapter, which is Modals Part 1. And this chart talks about making suggestions. So making suggestions, it is, what does it mean to make suggestion? It means that you suggest something to somebody. Okay, you suggest something to somebody, an idea or something, okay, in general. And the models we can use are as follows. So the first example, we have the model let's. Okay, have the model let's go to a movie. And let's means I have a suggestion for us, because here let's, it's an abbreviation for let us. It means I have a suggestion for us. Let's is followed by the simple form of the verb. So if you look here, we have the simple form of the verb go after let's. What does it mean simple form of the verb? It means the infinitive without to, as simple as that. Like any other model that we have seen before. Negative form, we say let's not go to a movie. Okay, let's stay home instead. So this is a negative form. How you do the negative form? It means let's not. Okay, let's not. Let me make this very clear. It's not plus simple form of the verb. Let's not go. Let's not do something, whatever. Another way of expressing or making a suggestion is via the use of the WH question, why? Why don't we go to a movie? Why don't you come around? Why don't I give Mary a call? And this one is primarily used in spoken English to make a friendly suggestion that you say. It is used in informal communication between friends, family members, etc. to give a friendly suggestion. Other examples of models that we also use for making suggestions and buts, these ones are a little bit rarely used. So we have the model shall I open the window? Shall we leave at 2? But here, and it is used like the form of a question, like why don't we go to a movie? This is form of interrogative form. The same thing for shall I, it's interrogative form. But this one is relatively formal and infrequent, okay, very infrequent in everyday life communication. This is what we can say about making suggestions, the models that we use for making suggestions. And by this we finish the first chapter, which is about Modals Part 1.